What's going on, guys? I'm back with my 25 Days of Christmas Marathon, and today we're going to be doing one of the better horror Christmas films, Krampus. While the holiday season represents the most magical time of the year, ancient European folklore warns of Krampus, a horned beast who punishes naughty children at Christmas time. When a dysfunctional family squabbling causes young Max to lose his festive spirit, it unleashes the wrath of a fearsome demon. As Krampus lays siege to the family's home, mom, dad, sister, and brother must band together to save one another from a monstrous fate. With Krampus, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. I've seen it a few times already, so that's already something to say about it, but in the same breath, every time I watch it, I say to myself, oh, why didn't I give this a better score the last time I watched it? Then the second act hits, and I remember, oh yeah, that's why. So let's dive into the positives first. When it comes to the story, straight away, it gets points for being creative and fairly original. It may not be fully original through and through, but as a concept, it certainly does enough to stick out for its own, so fair play with that. This, of course, is a Christmas film, but to me, the best part about it is the fact that it's an anti-Christmas film. No, I'm not no Scrooge, I just enjoy a bit of a mix-up. Right from the opening credits, the film opens up with what looks like anyways, people Black Friday shopping and fighting with one another. This does a really good job setting the tone for what's to come. Around this time of the year, it's very easy to get oversaturated with Christmas films because a lot of them are the same or just flat out bad. But although this one has similar themes and character archetypes, it still separates itself by being an opposite of a Santa story. It has that Christmas vibe to it, but it does get overtaken by the bad attitudes amongst the characters being self-centered, with the negative conversations, with the name-callings and arguments, and along with the physical fights. But it certainly ties it all in well with the themes of family and sacrifice. Krampus surely has its ups and its downs, but all in all, it's pretty entertaining, where it can turn on the creepy when it wants to, while also being humorous and pretty tongue-in-cheek. The last bit of the story I wanted to touch on was the tension. Sure, the tone transitions could use a bit of cleaning up, but I thought the film did a good job building natural tension as the film proceeded on, easing the audience into things, just giving you little taste here and there until the big climax. The next positive I wanted to touch upon was the characters. With Michael Dougherty coming off his smash hit and Trick or Treat, he was able to accumulate this ensemble cast to give the film its best shot, with some pretty big names like Toni Collette, Adam Scott, David Koechner, and Conchata Ferrell. Now, don't get me wrong, there were no Oscar-worthy performances going on here, but you could definitely tell everyone mainly tried here, fulfilling their roles to the best of their abilities, whether it was being nice or being mean. Although some of the characters either shined or stunk more than others, I felt that all the characters worked well off one another, doing a good job selling the themes at hand. Our lead MJ Anthony as Max isn't really the strongest actor of the bunch, nor really gave the best performance, but he had some decent direction for his character, making it pretty easy to root for him and care for his character. But as a main character, he wasn't at the forefront for the entire time, but when he was, that's when the film was trending in its best direction. Toni Collette, of course, was great as always. Although she wasn't leading the charge per se, I thought she was very clearly the best on set, handling her dialogue and actions really well. Then with Adam Scott, although he wasn't playing that typical jerk-off style of character he usually does, I thought he did a top job in his role, showing off pretty good range in his acting ability. His character is fairly stereotypical, but he does just enough to stand out to be easy to root for. When it came to the comedic relief, I believe that's what they were going for, and David Koechner and Conchata Ferrell, they were pretty 50-50. They had some decent moments as characters where their comedy was pretty hit or miss, but they were certainly necessary to help enhance that comedic tone they were going for. It's not that their timing was off or they weren't any good, but more so the fact the script didn't really give them too much to work with, so they did have to make the best of what they had. Now when it comes to the main antagonist in Krampus, man, his design was really good, outside of maybe the blatantly obvious prosthetic mask. I really enjoyed the hunchback with the low head, coupled with his nasty long fingernails and change on his back, really bringing in such a cool design to the character. Unfortunately though, he sort of kind of gets a little sidelined up until the third act, but the moments that he was in frame, he was very imposing and a demanding figure to be reckoned with. And my last bit of praise comes from the technical aspects, the camera work, the color palette, and the effects. The camera work itself was naturally just fine, but from time to time, it'd give you a pretty decent looking shot from some of the wide takes and panning shots that it took, but what really stole the show altogether for my money was the color palette. I thought they did a really good job giving this film such a cold feeling with the mute colors that they used from the different blues and the grays. Unless you're oddly watching this film in the summertime, it almost calls for a blanket automatically because how cold you feel. Another impressive bit to the color scheme was when they did use the pop of color, you could almost sense the warmth coming from that shot. When it comes to the effects, I can always appreciate good practical effects, so well done for that. But also the small bits of CGI they did use also came out quite decent as well. There wasn't anything really groundbreaking per se, but just some really good solid work all around. Now of course, this film wouldn't be a mixed bag without its mixed aspects, so let's hop into the negatives, again, starting with the story. So, as I already hinted at, the film starts off pretty solid, doing a good job building tension, but as the second act starts to drag along, the film starts to sort of break down a bit. It almost felt like they lost concentration of what they were going for and basically said, screw it, let's wrap this up. I don't know, maybe I'm alone here. I don't know, because maybe they just kind of ran out of money or ideas, but I was almost hooked right from the start, and right when things started should have been taken off, it just started to fall apart piece by piece, whether it was with the story or the characters. One of the bigger positives I had in the beginning was the fact that it took good risks, but as the film went on through its story structure, it kind of rewrote their risks and showed that nothing was really in jeopardy all along, which really felt like a kick in the pills. To kind of back off of that, everything seemed to move so fast, so when things would happen, it would be the talking point for a few minutes, and then they would move on from it. They didn't really seem to have a sense of urgency up until the last 20 minutes or so, when the feeling was already lost. My next issue with the film is the fact that it felt too foolish at times. I understand it's meant to be a horror comedy, but with that, I had a hard time trying to balance the tones, where ultimately, it just came off too over the top at times. If they wanted to go dark, they should have just went for it and riddled in some well-timed, well-thought-out jokes here and there. That would have helped balance out the tones and keep things rather tight and more consistent. They probably couldn't, or just didn't take the R rating that they were looking for, trying to appease to as many people as possible, which is fine, but this film certainly could have benefited from an R rating, whether it was with the gore, the kills, the language, or anything else in between. To piggyback off of that, I don't mind the PG-13 films that act like an R-rated film, but in reality, the scares are meant to be about half of the selling point, if not more, and they just didn't really work for me. They did a pretty good job building up to them, but fell pretty flat when it came down to it. My next issue is with the characters, but more so the amount of characters. Maybe there's proper source material that I just don't know about outside of Krampus being a European folklore, but they certainly could have done without some of the characters. Now, this isn't to say we didn't need Max, because he ultimately was the most important character, but after the first act, he basically kind of gets sidelined till the final act. But when it does come down to the unnecessary characters, the baby was super unnecessary. Same with the dog. In all honesty, the island didn't really need to be there either. One comedic relief would have been fine. And the last nitpick I have is with the post-production sound. Most of them came off really cartoonish and out of place that it's almost laughable, on top of them being completely stock sounds. Overall, I do enjoy this one more than I dislike it. Is it something I'll throw on every year despite it being a mixed bag? Probably not, but it's nice to throw on once in a while around the holiday. Krampus gets a 5 out of 10 from me. Let me know what you think of Krampus in the comments below, and let me know what film you'd like to see me review next. See you guys in the next one.